of the things that I really like talking about on this channel is the state of the American comic book industry, because I think it's really fascinating to watch as manga comes in here and pretty much just takes over the entire market. I highlight this every month. Every month, it's the same thing. You pretty much have manga taking over the top 20 charts monthly. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons being, in my opinion, that, well, mainstream comic books are just really PC, really safe. They don't really take any risks, not real risks. I mean, it's mostly a political move, or they'll swap a character or something like that. That's not a real risk. That's not a real risk. They don't tell good, compelling stories really anymore. There's some books that do. Amazing Spider-Man's doing really good right now, but for the most part, mainstream comics are just boring. And then also you have the way that mainstream comic book pros treat customers. Okay, this really got highlighted a few weeks ago when Dan Slott decided to spurg out on a customer, go into the customer's DMs and tell him what he can and cannot post on social media, which was just bizarre. The biggest problem, though, is the comic book editors because, well, they have all of the power. They pretty much tell all of the pros what to do. And most of them are people who were bullied their entire lives, and now they're in positions of power. So they naturally abuse the power. It's just, you can always tell the character of a person by giving them a little bit of power. But, these are people like Alana Smith, who famously said, if you vote for Trump, we will remember you whether we win or lose. And, this led to anybody that's pretty much an open conservative in the comic book industry gets fired or blacklisted. Anyone that's, been a part of Comicsgate knows that story. You have several pros that were conservative. They've all pretty much been kicked out or they're quiet. One of the creators, Bill Willingham, he's got a lot of DC stuff under his belt. In case you don't know, his biggest works is Fables. But you might know him also from runs on Robin and Batman. So he's got a lot of stuff under his belt. Look at this Fables run. It's huge. It's huge. He decided to kind of give a theory on what was going on, or what's going on in comics on his Substack. Substack's another thing that's got a lot of these comic pros worried. Mostly the untalented ones, because this gives the people that have a lot of talent a place to go as well, other than Comicsgate or some other outlets. They can go to Substack. So, a lot of the bullies and the babies, they don't like that because, like I've said before, comics is kind of a bottom-up industry as well. People, if they have a lot of identity check marks, they pretty much have more power than someone that's been in the industry for 30 years and that actually has talent. They have more say than them based on identity politics and check boxes. So it's a big problem. The rot is deep in the comic book industry, and I'm not sure if they'll get out of it. Now, I think indies, stuff from like CG, Substack, maybe Image to an extent, crowdfunding in general, like comics aren't going anywhere, but I do think eventually the wheels are going to come off for DC and Marvel, especially if the entertainment industry, like movies and TVs, and television shows, if that goes down, that's the end. There's no reason to keep them around. But let's take a look at what Bill has to say here, because he actually runs down a pretty good story here that I think is worth going over. So according to Bill, he says, I've been in the business more than 40 years, enough to have some perspective, and there have been some cranky comic pros that whole time. I don't intend to name too many names because it isn't my intention here to take them to task, either collectively or as individuals. It is my intention to offer an insider's perspective on one of the possible reasons this may be, which is why are some comic pros so damn abrasive? And it's a big problem. It really is. So he calls it the law of fecal gravity. To put it in a more earthy way, it is now and always has been the case of shit rolls downhill. Since the dawn of modern comics, the publishers and their editor representatives have made it their business to keep the freelancers under their thumb. He had to keep us in our place, which is the state of being cringingly subservient to them. First, he pointed to veteran comic book creator Jim Shooter's own experience working at DC at the young age of 13, where according to Shooter, those two editors took full advantage of him at his young age. In fact, he goes on to explain the story goes that they would brag around the DC offices of how completely they have this kid under the hills, and he can't do anything about it because he's so young. Second, he points to his own interaction that he had with a Marvel editor who introduced himself to the author for the first time by accosting him and declaring, "Listen here, I'm the new editor on Wild Cards, and I want you to know from the beginning that I'm not going to take any shit from a goddamn arrogant freelancer who came out of goddamn gaming and thinks he knows a goddamn thing. Let's get that straight right away." Having never been spoken to, have never spoken to this fellow before, he continued, "I told him I remember it as politely said, but who knows? No thanks. I won't be spoken to like that from anyone." And that ended my run on the Wild Cards project and any chance of working at Marvel for many years. Yeah, Marvel's got the worst. Think of like Heather Antos and the way that she treats fans. Imagine how it would have been to work under her, right? Imagine how that probably was. And it would be funny to have somebody actually come out and have like stories on that, you know? So for these examples, Willingham wrote were perfect examples of general industry atmosphere, where as a general rule, comic book creatives learn to act as we're taught to act. And the hallowed halls of the comic publishing game were places rife with spoiled children in positions of authority. The bullied often became bullies, he observed. "It's true of the bullied becoming the bullies," said Willingham. Could also be seen in contemporary sense in the episode of Marvel's 616 released late last year featuring current Fantastic Four writer Dan Slott. Now, this was true in that it's pretty much a hit piece on Dan Slott. It's Tom Brevoort. This guy right here is incredibly lazy. Probably he's like king of the editors, I think. He's like really high up there, and he's a lazy person. I don't know what he does all day. I could do, and I've done several videos on him and some of his mistakes and some of the terrible stuff that he's done at Marvel Comics. But he pretty much humiliated Dan Slott, the guy who wrote into that other guy's DMs and told him what he can and can't post on social media. And they embarrassed him in that. It was pretty much just a hit piece, and it's on Disney Plus. You can go watch it. It shows how lazy Dan Slott is, and it shows how he's obsessed with social media, how he can't finish his work, and it's all put out there. I'm surprised Dan Slott agreed to do it because he looks horrible in that video. Absolutely horrible and ridiculous. So it goes on to say, in one of those odd Marvel behind-the-scenes specials on the Disney Channel, we saw longtime comic scribe Dan Slott absolutely humiliated on camera by his editor. He explained, and of course, Dan Slott is notorious for how badly he treats his readers because those who are trained to be bullies don't abuse the ones who bullied or bully, since it seems to still be ongoing them. They bully the next ones down the line. It's all about fecal gravity, he asserted. That's my theory. It doesn't encompass everyone because not everyone becomes a bully, no matter how badly they were treated and continue to be treated. Most have more character than that, but some do become a bully. And in an environment of stunted children ruling by fiat and tantrum, it's little wonder some continue to be stunted children who lash out by fiat and tantrum. He then goes on to say that it seems more prominent now, and with many people leaving the big two, which is what he says here, basically the only ones that are left are going to be the bullies and the babies. And what I thought was even more funny is down here, He says the rot is deep and it's going to take a long time for comics to straighten out. Remember, even after the rot had long set in, it still took Rome 500 years to fall. This will be with us for some time to come, he ultimately concluded. Of course, that's assuming my theory and observations are correct. I could be off the way of the mark. He could be way off the mark. He also talks about social media and says how it's making it worse. Like they can basically get on there and just be mean all day. And I think he's onto something here. I do. I think you've got a lot of stunted growth, like a lot of stunted children, like Dan Slott, that work in the comic book industry. All of these people were obviously bullied when they were kids. And now, the editors are in positions of power. They bully the artists and the writers, and the artists and the writers, they bully you. It's like a chain of shit. Of course, the editors bully everybody. Readers, customers, freelancers, all them. And then, the artists, the pros, they bully you. They don't bully up, they bully down. So it's like everyone's shitting on the readers and the customers. But pretty good little write-up by Bill. I thought it was pretty good. And I wish him the best over at Substack. Hopefully he finds what he's looking for over there and gets some success. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. Also, if you would, please like, subscribe, share the video. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that notification bell. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Also, if you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description. You can find some merchandise in there that you might want to check out. Also, make sure to follow me over on Twitch. I do watch parties, play video games over there. They're always fun. Follow me over there and come hang out. Also, make sure you subscribe to YellowFlash, my other channel. There's a link to that in the description as well. I do a lot of live streams over there that I don't do on this channel. Usually smaller and a little bit more personal. So make sure you follow me over there and sign up.